Hey guys, in today's video, I'll cover the top 3 very best late game multi-shot Bowazon builds that you can possibly make on a high or unlimited budget. This video follows on from my previous video covering the top 3 best value multi-shot Bowazon builds, where I cover Bowazon builds that use more easy to obtain items that at the same time deliver some good value and make the Bowazon more enjoyable to play. If you don't have a huge budget to spend on your next Bowazon, then I suggest watching this previous video by clicking up here if you haven't watched this video already. So before jumping right in, keep in mind that at this level, there are a lot of nuanced choices to make around things like what charms to use, what circlet to use, should Fortitude, Enigma, or Jeweler's Armor be used, and any other micro optimizations that can be made to make this Bowazon perform at its tip-top maximum. All of these sorts of things will be covered in time in separate videos, as there's a lot of depth in this topic that needs to be unpacked. And trying to squeeze this information into this video won't do this topic justice. The top 3 list today also comes off the back of all the previous Players 1 and Players 8 cow level testing that I've performed over the past few months, which the top 3 of these builds I will share here. So with that said, let's jump in. Starting with number 3, we have a Faith Matriarchal Bow Bowazon with an Act 2 Might Mercenary using a Pride rune word. A lot of you may be familiar with Faith, but for those who don't know, Faith is a high-end rune word for bows and crossbows that requires 4 runes, among of which include Jar and Om runes. Faith bows carry some decent raw weapon damage, but what makes Faith really stand out is all of its other perks, the most significant of which is the Fanaticism aura that is always active while equipped. The Fanaticism aura grants a Faith user and her nearby mercenary and minions a faster attack speed, more damage, and attack rating. Faith on top of this also grants a massive 300% bonus to attack rating, as well as ignores target defense or resistances, lots of plus skills, and a chance to spawn skeletons that can help aggro and tank for the Bowazon. Although Faith in a Matriarchal bow base is not commonly looked at as a main choice for a physical Bowazon, the damage is still very respectable after you take into account all of the max damage charms and jewels that you would expect to see on a top tier Bowazon build. However, the main selling point for the Faith Matriarchal bow is the flexibility that this bow grants to the Bowazon player to be able to equip different gear, while still almost guaranteeing to hit the fastest attack speed breakpoint with this build. For example, you could hybridize between Multishot and Freezing Arrow, in which case a Matriarchal bow base is a perfect base for this, with a +3 to bow skills and a great natural attack speed. Or if you really wanted to, you can make a Boss Hunter type Bowazon that stacks Crushing Blow and uses Atma's Scarab, which this bow is definitely one of the top contenders to do this with. Maybe this is something I'll experiment with the next time I look at more Uber Tristram Bowazon builds. Also, the Faith Matriarchal bow was for a brief moment a best-in-slot candidate for a Multishot Bowazon during the early stages of D2R, during which the Faith Matriarchal bow could shoot at 6 frames per attack, or 4.16 attacks per second, which is 17% faster than the current limit of 7 frames per attack. This however got quickly patched over. So then when it comes to Faith bows, reaching the fastest attack speed breakpoints is a lot easier in comparison to other bow setups, so the virtues of using a Faith Matriarchal bow over other Faith bows are pretty limited, and there certainly are better bases to make a Faith rune word in to better optimize damage output. Out of all of the multi-shot Bowazon testing that I've completed, the Faith Matriarchal bow came in at 2nd place overall, but in this category today it sits in 3rd place, which leads into the next bow in the list. Next in at number 2, we have a Faith Diamond or Shadow Bow Bowazon with an Act 2 Might Mercenary using a Pride rune word. The Diamond and Shadow Faith bows are grouped together in 2nd place, as they are using the same class of base, so to speak, and only have some minute differences. The Diamond bow base has a higher min damage of 33 and a tighter damage range overall, whereas the Shadow bow base has a very slight damage advantage over the Diamond bow. Both of these Faith bows do noticeably more damage than the Faith Matriarchal bow, while still being capable of reaching the fastest attack speeds without sacrificing much in the way of ideal gear. In some cases, they can be viewed as a perfect balance of higher damage output while still being quite flexible. For PvM, these Faith bows can reach a maximum attack speed while using Atma's Scarab and Razor Tail at the same time, if that's what you desire. For PvP, they're the highest DPS bow that at the same time allows a Bowazon to reach the 68% faster cast rate breakpoint for teleporting with Enigma. The only notable downside with these two Faith bows is that neither of them come with plus to bow skills, which a Matriarchal bow covered earlier can get up to +3 to bow skills. While this doesn't really impact damage too much at all for a multi-shot Bowazon, it provides some slight utility by freeing up skill points in multi-shot, reducing the mana cost of Guided Arrow, and increasing the damage conversion percentage to magic for Magic Arrow. That said, when it comes to multi-shot and other skills in a physical bow skill tree, raw damage is ultimately king and why the Faith Diamond Bow and Shadow Bow sit in second place. Before we cover first place, an honourable mention goes out to the Windforce Bowazon with an Act 2 Might Mercenary using a Pride rune word. I covered this build in my previous video as one of the best value Bowazon builds that can be made. This build returns in this video, but only as an honourable mention this time. While Windforce and Pride are no doubt a very good combination, the Windforce Bowazon needs to reach level 99 to maximise Windforce's maximum damage potential and to minimise any attack rating issues, which only after that very steep climb, the Windforce build will have a fighting chance to compete against the Faith Bowazon builds. But even then, as much as a fully optimised Windforce and Pride build can reach some really high damage ranges, all of the Faith Bowazon builds covered so far ultimately have comparable or slightly more DPS than Windforce anyway. Just as significantly, Windforce doesn't have the same level of perks as a Faith Bow, and for Bowazons that want to use an Enigma, the drop-off in damage for a Windforce build is greater than that of any Faith Bowazon build. When you then factor in Terror Zones and a high demand for attack rating and resistances for these areas, as well as more generally, Faith shooting faster, increasing the frequency of monsters getting put into hit recovery mode, and then as well, the Mercenary being able to benefit from the Fanaticism aura, Windforce does in the end clearly fall short of Faith there. And then lastly for PvP, enhanced damage from circlets and other items, as well as from synergies and auras is quite scarce due to normally speccing towards a vitality heavy build, and not having a mercenary with 2 auras, Faith definitely stands out in PvP as well. With all of those factors together, we can see why Windforce only deserves an honourable mention today for the best late game Bowazon builds. And so then, it should be no surprise that in first place today, we have a Faith Grand Matron Bow Bowazon with an Act 2 Might Mercenary using a Pride rune word. The Faith Grand Matron Bow is much like today's previous 2 Faith Bow entries. However, the Faith Grand Matron Bow's base weapon damage is a notch or 2 higher than all other Faith Bows. It's this extra damage that gives the Faith Grand Matron Bow an edge over any other bow and is able to bar none dish out the highest DPS out of any other bow. This advantage does come at a small price, however, and you probably guessed it already. But basically, despite the Faith Grand Matron Bow being able to shoot at 7 frames per attack, even while wearing Fortitude or Enigma, the demand for increased attack speed gear is much more felt with the Grand Matron Bow in particular. With the Faith Grand Matron Bow, the Bowazon is locked into very specific gear to reach the top attack speed numbers, specifically 45% attack speed from the headpiece, 20% from the amulet, 20% from the gloves, and 10% from the belt. And from that, you could probably tell that means the Bowazon has to use Nosferatu's coil instead of Razortail and forego the 100% pierce, and has to use either Cat's Eye or High Lord's Wrath amulet instead of Atma's Scarab or Caster amulet. However, being prevented from using a Razortail and Atma's doesn't really outweigh the benefits of having that extra damage that comes with using a Faith in a Grand Matron Bow. After all, in one of my recent videos, I covered that while 100% chance to pierce is nice, having a 90 or 91% chance to pierce is still good enough. You'll be able to see the thumbnail of this other video at the end of this video. And then for Atma's, Cat's Eye and High Lord's Wrath are good amulets in their own right anyway. Atma's Scarab is really more of a crutch when you're struggling to stack damage onto your build or you're predominantly using strafe. But seeing as we're covering late game Multishot Bowazon builds here, not being able to equip Atma's is not something that's going to be sorely missed. One other belt option I've liked using is the Thunder God's Vigor belt for that lightning absorb against those nasty gloams. But with some very recent playtesting, I'm finding that gloams don't seem to pose a big threat as long as you have 75 or 80% lightning resistance. At the very least, you'll have some ample time to pot, reposition and or cast slow missiles even against larger groups or versus champions and boss packs. So really, using Cat's Eye or High Lord's Wrath together with Nosferatu's coil is really a solid option, and the Faith Grand Matron Bow Bowazon also has the benefits of using the +3 to bow skills as well, which is really nice. And so this is why the Faith Grand Matron Bow Bowazon build sits in first place today as the best late game Multishot Bowazon build. So there you have it guys, I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you did, then do hit that like button to show your appreciation. If you're playing a Multishot Bowazon right now and at that late game stages of trying to optimize your build to the maximum possible, feel free to hit me up in the comment section below if you have any questions. Also, do check out the Bowl Discord community, come and say hello to myself and everybody else there and start hanging out in some games together. As always, if you haven't done so already and want to keep up to date with more Bowazon content, then do subscribe and hit that notification bell. Otherwise, stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.